Now, time for a UTCR.Live exclusive. So could you just tell us a little bit about yourself in general?
Right, what do you want to know? I have a big passion for aeroplanes. That's come out in my early life a long time ago. Ex-military, did 23 years in the RAF, thoroughly enjoyed it, and came into teaching by accident initially, if I'm honest. It wasn't a long-term plan, but it kind of happened while I was in the military. Enjoyed it, carried on, and thoroughly enjoying my time at UTC Reading.
Wonderful. Could you tell us a little bit about what you actually do at UTC in your day-to-day life?
Well, I think my role is, people would describe it as the operational role. So I'm here to try and make sure everything's working. Timetable, which I'm working on at the moment, on a day-to-day basis, that the teachers are in the right place and the students are in the right place. All the rooms are sorted, the cover's sorted in the mornings, and also to support the assistant principals in their particular roles of impact, outcomes, behaviour, safeguarding as well.
Wonderful. And have you worked at other schools in the past?
I have. So I worked at the Vine School in Basingstoke I was a teacher there for 8.5 years. I was head of maths when I left there. I started there when I first left the Air Force. That said, my last role in the Air Force was liaison for Combined Cadet Force. So what I had was anything up to about 15 schools around the south of England, and I'd come in whenever they needed me on a sort of rotational basis and support their Combined Cadet Force units. That obviously gave me an insight into schools, and what was quite interesting was when I'd made the decision to leave the Air Force over that last year, 18 months or so, when the schools realised I was leaving and I was going to be a maths teacher and I had the Air Force skills as well, then they were touting for my business, and that was helpful for me. So I had a few schools to choose from, but I quite liked the Vine. It was good. It worked for me, and thoroughly enjoyed my time there until 2 years ago when I started here.
Brilliant. How has that differed from your job here?
Well, head of maths over at the previous school, head of a course subject's a tough job in any school, really. You are absolutely responsible for a massive, very visible part of the school. I mean, at the end of the day, it goes on to the school league tables, the national league tables. So if the maths department doesn't do well, it can make the school look really bad. It can trigger Ofsted inspections as well. And there was, I think my first year as head of maths over there, results didn't go very well, and it was a horrible time. I certainly felt under pressure. Here's very different. Yes, obviously whole school results are massively important, and everything that I do here is about driving progress of everyone, both staff and students, because it's just as important to get the staff to improve and progress as well. And I'm very conscious that if it doesn't go well, that my job's on the line, my head's on the block, really. So there's a drive there. I think what's different here is that it's not just about exam results; it's about destinations, and the destinations of the students is a massive thing.
I've seen that myself. I've constantly been pushed by all sorts of teachers to think about where I'm going, and we've had all of the wonderful industry partner engagement, and it's really helped me to get that sense of what's going to happen after school, not just have some sort of abstract teaching going on.
Yeah.
And what would you say your absolute favourite part about teaching at the UTC is?
Well, I think it is, it only works if you get to know the students and know where they want to be. I mean, that's what it's all about, isn't it? What is it they want to do? We can guess in some cases, but actually you've got to build those relationships and find out if a student wants to be an engineer or go to medicine or computing, anything at all. And then that gives us that focus. So it forces the staff, it certainly forces me to build relationships. And that's massive. I've seen in other schools where sometimes senior leadership don't get the opportunity to build those relationships. And that must be awful. I thoroughly enjoy the fact that I have to, and that for me is great, because at the end of the day, I feel personally very lucky that I get to impact and have influence on young adults' lives. And as cheesy as that sounds, that's exactly what the job is. I've got plenty of ex-military colleagues and ex-work colleagues that just think it's crazy coming into teaching, actually, and I'm sure they earn far more money than me with a lot less stress. However, their jobs must be thoroughly boring, if you ask me. I really, really like the fact that I get to work with you guys, and hopefully some little nuggets might get taken into the future, some little nuggets of my stories, apparently, and my teaching might help some of you guys in the future.
I must add, you must have one of the best memories in the world, just to be able to remember all of the cohorts' destinations, their names and everything. You have that pretty sorted out. And do you have any sort of technique to it, or does it just happen over time?
I think, I have a technique for learning names, with it, certainly in a classroom environment. I pride myself that give me an hour with a new class of 30-odd students, I'll have all their names by the end of the lesson. So I think that helps. But ultimately, it's just about spending time with them. And the more you talk to people and find out things that are out of the ordinary for them, the more you remember. That said, I'm terrible with names. I'm shocking with names. I mean, give half an hour by the end of this interview, I'll have forgotten who you are, if I'm honest. But just remind me, don't take offence if I have.
No worries at all. And could you tell us a little bit about your time in the Air Force? Did you enjoy it in general? Was it a good experience?
Listen, I've been very lucky in that throughout my whole working career, I've done the things I've wanted to do. I was really lucky that I wanted to join up since about the age of 5. I had an uncle who was in, and we used to go and visit him, and he worked at RAF Coningsby, which had fast jets, Phantoms and Lightnings at the time. And I just loved going to visit and seeing all the jets going all the time. And that was it. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to work on jet engines. So I was really lucky. That was a focus for me. I managed to join up at 17, not 16, even though I should have joined at 16. But here's the thing. I failed some of my O-levels. I failed some qualifications. Ironically, bearing in mind what I teach, I failed maths at school first time round. So I had to go and resit and go to college for a year, which I really didn't want to do. And I joined the RAF a year later than I wanted to. But it was everything I wanted it to be. I was very lucky. I did a 3-year apprenticeship. I know everyone that joins the military now goes in on an apprenticeship. But back then, because it was a long time ago, there was very few apprentices. There was about 120 of us a year. And it was a really dedicated 3-year-long training program where some of it was absolutely ridiculous. And why we stuck at some of it was... I have no idea. It was tantamount to bullying almost, but, it made you a resilient person, which I like to think I am. But then I got to work on the aircraft I wanted to work on, and my first squadron was VC-10, so big tanker transport aircraft. Flew all over the world. Whenever any one of these aircraft went unserviceable anywhere down route, we would go. So literally flew all over the world, which was fantastic. Did that for 5 years. Then I ended up on a strange unit in South Wales, which was aircraft crash recovery. Which was really interesting, sitting in a crew room day in, day out, waiting for the siren to go off to say off you go and pick up crashed aeroplanes, which was sometimes gory, but really interesting. Then I went out to a bomber squadron in Germany, a fast jet squadron in Germany, which was everything you expect it to be. Exciting, mostly a drinking competition, but again, going all over the world, Gulf War and everything else. And then something strange happened. They said, just as I was coming up to my end of my third year, they said, right, you need to go back and you're going to go to college. Pardon? You've got to go back to college in the UK. What do you mean I've got to go back to college? We need you to go and do your HNC, which is a level 4 BTEC. I was like, I don't want to. I want to stay in Germany. I'm having a good time. No, you're going back to this. Oh, blimey. Okay. So ended up back at number 1 School of Technical Training, RAF Cosford. And typical of the military, where normally that would be a 2-year-long course, they wanted it done in 10 months. And I think the BTEC pass rate at the time was about 40%, but the Air Force wanted 60%. So it was a tough course. But I really enjoyed it. As much as I wasn't particularly academic prior to then, I thoroughly enjoyed the course to the point where at the end of the 10 months they said, you've done all right, would you like to stay and teach on the next course? Well, that was a big decision to make, really. And I think one of the things that came into it, I just spent the previous 3 Christmas and New Year's in a tent in the desert. And I thought, okay, I'll give it a go. So long as you send me through university, which they did. They gave me day release. And I taught various subjects, anything from propeller theory to gas turbine theory as well, but also maths, mechatronics, materials, everything really. And it was great. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I did my aeronautical engineering degree while I was at it. And yeah, never looked back. I think at the end of that, I was then in a weird position where I was non-commissioned but had an engineering degree, so they weren't entirely sure what to do with me, so they sent me off on a design team, seconded out to BA Systems. So I worked on the Nimrod MRA4 project team, which was really interesting but also really frustrating. It was a massive project, £28 billion project, and you were a very small part cog in the team, and I found that really frustrating, to be honest. So in the back of my head, I thought, well, I really enjoyed teaching. Maybe that's where I need to head for. I had about 4 years left at that point in the Air Force. So a job came up working with the Combined Cadet Force. And I did that. And that got me going into school. So my last few years, while I did teacher training part-time as well, and never looked back since.
Absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much for coming along today, Neil. We have got one final question for you, though. Why do you have a large collection of blazers in your office?
See, well, firstly, they're not blazers, they're suit jackets. And I really like the hat stand they're on. So I don't want to be bringing my suit jackets to and from work all the time. So all of my suit jackets are here. And I don't have to worry then, do I? I'm never gonna have the wrong suit jacket. I'm always going to have matching. So yeah, that's all it is. They're all my suit jackets. I don't bother taking them home.
Thank you. Of course, absolutely wonderful having you here, and a huge thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you very much.